Good day, guys. Welcome to the Process Podcast. Today's guest is an educator. He's a consultant. He served in the military, actually. He is also an expert in sterile processing, and also he was born in Dominica. He works with Central Sterilization Solutions. He's a consultant. And welcome to the show today is Pernell husband.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here. Good to be with you.
Welcome. Nice to have you. And can you tell the guests a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself to everyone so that we know your expertise and your background.
Absolutely. I started my career, I guess you can say, in perioperative services several years ago when I joined the United States Navy. I was trained as a surgical technician and manager in the Navy. Did that for about 15 years and then moved into the world of sterile processing management. So I've been a manager in the field. I've been a director, an educator, and now a business owner and consultant in the field.
Oh, great. What have you taken from your experiences, or what was your most what area did you grow most in your journey in cell processing?
Yeah, so I think, for me, I've tried to grow in all aspects. I love teaching, so I read quite a bit. I like to be around people, so that helps. And I like to solve problems or to help solve problems. So I think I've grown in definitely in those particular areas. Yeah.
Mm. And that's interesting. So tell us about your time in Dominica growing up. How
Yeah.
is that? I found that was really interesting studying your bio. How was your time in Dominica? How was growing up there? And how did that help you to get to where you are right now?
Well, there was a slight error in the bio. It's
Oh,
actually no, it's okay. It's actually St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
St.
Yeah,
Croix. Oh, I'm
right.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I from the time I was an infant till I was about 12 years old, I lived in the Caribbean on the island of St. Croix. Growing up there was, you know, good. It was a good childhood. It was beautiful. Fruits aplenty on the trees, and the beach was, right there. Everywhere you turned, there was the beach. Strong sense of family. Strong sense of identity. And the food, awesome.
Hmm.
So I think growing up in the Caribbean and in the Virgin Islands was a good thing for me.
Mm. And I also grew up in the Caribbean, and sunny weather all year round is one of the perks of living in the Caribbean.
80
And
degrees, right? Year round.
80 degrees year round, and you're always close to the beach, no matter where you are.
Can't beat
Um,
that, man.
you
Can't
can't
beat
beat
it.
that, and you
The
always have
views.
the views. Yep, definitely the views of the ocean, amazing. And the thing is,
Mangoes. What kind
and
of
the
fruits you had
I
there?
liked guavas.
Guavas.
Guavas, definitely guavas, mangoes. You have your
Mm,
Julie mango, you have your mango long, you have your
right.
um mang. I don't know
Mhm.
how they call it in other places, but
Yeah.
and what else? You have your sugar apples and your fresh oranges. Um,
Did you have
yeah,
star fruits?
what's that?
The fruit it's shaped like a star, kind of a
Oh, the star fruit. I just saw that at the supermarket recently. Yeah,
yeah.
we do have that. Yeah, but that wasn't that popular. And it has a little tangy
Mhm.
taste to it though. So, but
Right. Right.
that was definitely a delicacy when you got it. But it wasn't. You had to search for that one.
Yeah.
We also had um What else? What else? I try and think of the names and the difference in names from there to here. You know, the
Right.
devil apple. We have a devil
Mhm.
apple.
Yeah.
It looks like an apple, but it's shaped like a pear.
Right.
So
Right.
we had that, and
Mhm.
I also miss the fresh fish
Oh
from the
yeah.
market.
Yeah.
So um,
Good food, man.
good food, good food.
Yeah.
Also, you get the special cookings, you get the goat, you get the chicken, you get the different types, different ways of cooking the same thing here, but it's
Right.
just cooked differently. There's a little more love in it. No disrespect to anybody's cooking, but uh,
Lots of
but
goat. Lots of goat.
yeah. You put all extra curry, you put
Yeah.
all extra, and then the thing is that the thing that makes it better is you do a lot with a little. That's the thing that makes it special.
You make it stretch.
Yeah, you could wake up. Let me tell you sometimes about you'd wake up in the morning and you'd have breakfast. You'd get some eggs
Hmm.
from the chicken.
Right.
You
Right.
would
Live chickens, right.
yeah, you'd go get some leaves from the tree to make your tea.
Hmm.
What we have now is the instant tea where you go, you put it in the cup, you put the hot water, and it's good. You actually have to pick the leaves, the young
Bush
leaves,
tea. Bush tea.
bush tea, right? Or the grass, pick the young blades of the grass or
Hmm.
the tree. And sometimes you have to climb the tree to get that. You get the soursop leaf, the baby leaves,
Right.
or the orange tree, the baby leaves. You
Hmm.
have to climb the tree just for a few leaves. Climb,
Yep.
yeah. So
Had to get that flavor.
just to get that flavor and a little sugar, and you stir that
Yeah.
together, and then you have your tea, and that's what you go to school with. You know what I mean? So those times
Let me
were
ask
had.
you this, and I
Mhm.
know if anybody's watching, they're like, "What the hell are these guys talking about?" But did you eat cornmeal porridge?
Of course, of course, of course. That was my favorite porridge, cornmeal porridge, and I stirred that sucker till it was really, really hard. I like it. I don't like it all drippy. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
But things like sugar, flour, you really appreciate those things when
Basics, yeah.
when you grew up in a country like that. Like
So
people take the
tell them about provisions.
provisions. Okay, you're coming after out from school, 3 p.m. Nothing to cook. You had
Mhm.
to go find a banana tree. Usually there's probably one that fell, so somewhere in
Mhm.
on the farm or in the bush somewhere. You'd get one of those. You'd cut a hand or two of bananas out. You'd take that. You'd peel those. Put some lime in that just to prevent it from sticking on your hands. You'd
Mhm.
peel those, cut them up, put them in a pot, get some salt, a little onion or a little garlic, put in that, let that simmer for a little bit. You maybe get a little rice, put on the side, and
Mhm.
then you try and figure out how you're going to get some meat. You might, go spend $2-3 on some chicken backs, you know, and you put that in a little separate pot. Get your lentils. You start with your you start with your brown sugar. You make a little browning. You put that in. You let that stuff for a little
They
bit.
don't know about the brown sugar.
Yeah, man.
That's a
So
flavor right there.
yeah. And then like you work with what you have. So
That's
you
right.
basically started for empty refrigerator, empty house, and then you just make it work. You make it work,
Mhm.
and that's a daily thing. And I
Create.
might yeah, and people take that for granted. Like you could just go and buy chicken with corn and potatoes for like $2 and put that in the
Right.
microwave and you're good. But
Mhm.
back then and people still do it now. It's so hard to make a meal. You had to make a meal. You couldn't microwave a meal. You had to make you had to make a meal.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
So those times really helped me out to get where I am now and have the mindset of a minimalist kind of it's never enough. Or I have to make the most of what I have. I can't take certain things for granted. So
Right.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
a good posture to be in for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I always have that mindset. I can't throw this away because I remember when I never had it. You
Right.
know, I
Right. It
always
makes you
put
appreciate it more.
for one thing, the your bars of soap. I always try and conserve my soap. I could have five in the in the cupboard
Right.
or under the sink, I would still try and squeeze the two I have together. So I don't know. It's just a habit I have now. So I remember the times I had like a little 2 inches of soap, trying to take a whole bath with 2 inches of soap. So
You were not
um,
gonna let it go, right?
I don't know, man. I'm scrubbing that sucker till it's done.
Uh,
So I remember those times. And those were hard times, but you don't know how hard they are until you come to a better situation. You're like, oh man, I used to do all this with so little,
right.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
That's having that background, like you said, really, makes you appreciate, the luxuries because just and the simple things, because they weren't always around, So yeah.
definitely. So what's your process for success on that same note? Like those things definitely helped us out. I mean, we came from a similar background, but what's your process for success? How do you change that around into being successful? How do you change those hard times around and focus on success or bring those into your world right now? Being these two so totally different worlds.
Yeah. I think for me, I've always been open-minded, and fortunately for me, even though we've all made our mistakes along the way, um, I've always sought out something more, and I think you know that's from having a mother and a father who always instilled that that hunger for education. It was big around my house. I remember, learning my times tables at the kitchen table, and if I got one wrong, a
Yeah.
little love tap.
Hmm.
Uh, so we learned those times tables very quickly. So very early on for me, education was key. My parents were very, keen on us taking advantage of education. So I guess that's stuck. And for me, it's, whether it was going into the Navy and learning a trade, then going off to school and earning degrees. I think, that's that echo, that's that echo. It was instilled from early on, and I'm thankful for that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, how was your family life growing up? You said you had your parents.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of folks don't grow up with both parents in the house, and I feel that probably helped you, give you an extra edge in terms of having a semblance of normality to try and aspire to growing up. So, how did the family aspect help you in your life growing up? Just the mental aspect of it.
Yeah, well, it's all I knew. It wasn't always perfect, but it was stable, very stable. Having parents who were hardworking, and parents who were immigrants to the United States. I just always, took note of how hard they worked and how much they put away, and the fact that they were able to, buy homes and invest in businesses. Um, they really kind of showed the way. And again, them drumming into our heads, education, 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 was something that they would not let us forget. So here we are.
Yeah, that's good. I relate to that because my father was a teacher, and
Mm,
I kind of everyone in fact, he taught at the same primary school I was at. So there was always the expectation that
Ooh.
your father is a teacher. You have to know this, you know.
Right.
So,
So you were a
or
good student. You were a good student.
no, no, I wasn't really. But I had my moments, though. I had my moments. I had my
Mhm.
moments. But it was always the like I couldn't go past a sit down below a certain level. Like I couldn't act like everybody else. I couldn't do what
Right.
everybody else did. I had to um be somewhat of a model. I couldn't disrespect the name,
That
you
must have
know.
been tough.
it,
Was
it
it?
was it
Was
was
it?
good. I got some perks because the teachers wouldn't touch me because my father was around the
Right.
corner.
Right.
So so but I definitely approach things different than everybody else. I couldn't act up in certain ways. When I saw certain behaviors, I couldn't partake in them. I'd be like, no, I can't, because that would reflect on the whole family. Because I have three brothers, and all of them were successful after primary school. What do you call primary school in the States? Grade school,
Yeah. Middle
junior
school.
high, junior high, junior high. So they were successful, and then I was the third. And everybody was like, "Oh, your brothers did so well. Are you gonna do so well too? How well are you gonna do?" So I had that pressure
Mhm.
on me too.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a whole bunch of things. I always got the pair of shoes that went through two brothers. I had that pair.
So by
That
the
was
time
amazing.
those shoes got to you, they were really
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah, they were really. yeah, yeah. So I got the
Very well.
really, yeah, I got the shoes that were really comfortable. I got the bags that were really, really, they changed color, but they still, the books might fall out sometimes, but I still had a bag. So
Right. Right.
um, and I was always harping on that to my mother, like, why can't I get a new bag? Why it's always the used bag?
Exactly.
Why can't I get something new? And then you have to look at the situation because my dad was a teacher, my mother was a housewife, and
Mhm.
you could only talk about those things so much because you really didn't need it to study. You didn't need it. Like it's something to
Just
have to
one
walk.
other
Right,
thing.
right. So you have to look at the value of, okay, I want a new bag, but look at my grades. Like, do I need that to study harder? Do I need that to pass my test or my term
Yeah.
my term test? And then you look at the bigger picture and you're like, I don't really need that. I could, as long as I have the books I need, I'll be all right. So, you know,
Exactly.
so I'm reflecting on
Don't
that.
even talk. Don't even talk about kids nowadays. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
a whole
You have to
nother.
have the look. You have to have the look to actually leave the house. You can't leave the house if you don't have the look. So it's a
A
little
whole,
different now.
it's a whole
It's a
nother animal. Yeah.
it's a whole other animal now. So what advice would you give yourself, your younger self? What advice would you give your younger self um, if you had
Well,
the
listen,
chance?
there's some advice that I would give, maybe not my younger self, but maybe a few years back,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been buy Tesla,
Hmm.
buy more of Apple.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. I know exactly what you're saying.
really, really well. Um, you know, what advice would my young self, what I would have given my young self? Like all of us, you know, made some mistakes along the way, have gotten off course, and I guess if anything, I would have, advised myself that those things, are going to come, and maybe here's how you can, move this way or move in a different way. Um, but I think, all of those things are what the good and the bad, are what make us who we are. And I think all of those things build character. So, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of stellar processing, now this is I know people have been watching this and like, what does this have to do with stellar processing?
Well, we just hanging out.
Yeah, we just
They should
so
just take a chill pill
Yeah, take a chill pill.
Stay and
Thank
enjoy the show or leave. It's all good.
thank you guys for tuning in and watching. In terms of sterile processing, what's your philosophy and your approach? Because we spoke on the last show, and you had some really great points on leadership and what leadership is in sterile processing, what it means, and what the actual role is as a leader in sterile processing. Give me some of your thoughts on leadership in sterile processing.
Well, I mean, I just think that anyone who goes into sterile processing at any level should understand that the job that they're about to undertake is probably the most critical job that they have ever had to undertake, right? At the end of the day, sterile processing and reprocessing of instrumentation is an infection prevention type of job. So going into sterile processing, all of us should have a full appreciation for the seriousness of the work that we're involved in. But all of us are going to bring a different level of attention, a different level of understanding to the work and to the environment, right? And I think a leader is one who understands and appreciates that you're going to have that mix, and that it's up to you to establish some clear principles, some clear direction, so that people can follow. I think it's all about leadership. I'm speaking specifically for sterile processing, but I just can't imagine any other industry that would thrive without, really good leadership. And I think especially in our field where people's lives are literally at stake, people who go into leadership should have, again, a full appreciation and understanding for the impact that we can have on people's lives.
Definitely, it definitely is a huge responsibility. It's like driving a bus. You have to get there quickly. You have time constraints, but you do have to make sure everyone gets there safely. So that's I'm an analogy guy. So I try and break things down simple ways so the
No, you're
person.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, 95% of surgical instruments used in surgical procedures today are reusable. So, we all have jobs because of that fact. Now, these instruments were used on patients, some of whom were sick, diseased, some of whom were okay. The issue is we never know. So, these instruments that we take care of, critical to surgical procedures, we know have to be handled in an appropriate way. There's zero room for error. So if you don't have good leadership in an environment where the impact on the patient, can be, very severe, you could have a lot of high risk activity taking place. So again, that leadership is super critical.
And as a leader, I believe leaders need to be proactive. Going back to the analogy of the bus driver, You can't just start the bus every day and drive. You have to make sure your oil's right, tire pressure is good. You have to make sure you licensed, insured. Um, there's a lot of things that a leader has to do even before you start driving the bus or the bus or before the bus takes
Yeah,
off. You have
yeah,
to take those precautions in advance, and you have to know what's wrong. You have to have some idea might go wrong and what it takes to run a smooth operation. You have to know those things in advance and not simply wait to put fires out every single day. Oh, bioburden, what do I do now? Oh, missing instruments, what do I do now? You have to anticipate that these are the issues you will have on a day-to-day basis, and you need to have a solution in advance. So when you have multiple incidents in a day, when you have multiple small frag trays with bioburden in one day, what's my backup? What's my worst case scenario? What's my plan for that? If my autoclave goes down? What's my backup plan for that? My washers go down. What's my backup plan for that? Um, I'm short staff. What's my backup plan for that? Some managers have no backup plan. They'll, when those things happen, they're like the deer in the headlights. Like, I don't know. I will think I'll, yeah, you need to have, I believe you need to have something planned out for the worst case scenario. Do you have a spare tire? When your tire goes flat, do you have a spare, or are you waiting for AAA? In terms of that type of analogy, you have to have a plan for the worst case scenario. So, and I think even the pandemic kind of helped us out get to that point of preparing for worst case scenarios in terms of supplies, um, PPE overcrowding, or lack of um, elective surgeries. I
mhm.
think the pandemic definitely put a lot of plans in place to help us prepare for situations like that. I believe you always need to have a plan. Um, if you have if you have a good plan B and you don't use it, it's better having a plan A that fails.
Yeah,
So yeah, I always feel always have a good plan B, even if you never use it. Have it there ready to go. Just have it ready to go. And
absolutely.
yeah.
Like you mentioned, Central is a very, very dynamic environment. And, there's a lot going on, right? I mean, there's just a lot happening. Not only is that manager responsible for the staff and personnel issues, behavioral issues, all of the regular stuff that managers, are concerned with. They also have the environment, right, um, to deal with. I mean, there's certain temperatures that certain parts of the department um, have to maintain, certain humidities. They're dealing with facilities issues like steam and electricity, and it's critical that, those systems are always up and running. And then they're dealing with, the OR, who is very busy, and they're adding on lots of cases, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on. People are calling in sick. It's not an easy task. But then all of this is happening in an environment, again, where you have zero, room for error. Your
Mhm.
errors could cause somebody a severe infection or
Mhm.
even death. So, yeah, you're right. Managers should have a plan, but managers, you know, should also be aware of the enormity of their task and everything that they're responsible for. It's a tough job.
Yeah.
It's a tough job. It's definitely not for everyone. They have so much to contend with. It is a difficult job in a very dynamic environment. But it's important that that person in the driver's seat, um, like you said, has a plan. And for me, that plan, always starts with training.
Mm. Definitely, I agree.
hmm
I
It
agree.
starts with making sure that the fundamentals. Um, we're all reading off the same sheet of music, right? Everybody understands the seriousness of what we're doing here, what microorganisms can do, that people can die as a result of, these kinds of infections that are caused by dirty instruments. And it's just, that's our world. And yeah, education, I think, is fundamental and is key. I know we'll talk some more about that.
Yeah, and I love education. That's one of my things, my niches. So competencies. I also like competencies. What's your view on competencies? Because I think competencies are a key or the gateway to any new employee following the trend of the department. If your competencies are lax, I believe you create an employee that's lax basically, and who doesn't. If your competencies do not pay attention to detail, and basically it's an overview of, hey, you should clean it, soak it. There's no detail in what you want to do. I believe you're setting that employee up to be unproductive in terms of attention to detail and focus. What's your take on that?
Well, I think competencies are an important way of gauging staff's competency. Do they understand how to complete certain tasks correctly? And can they demonstrate that they understand certain important principles in infection prevention and sterile processing? So yeah, competencies are very important. We use them to gauge, the knowledge of our staff. They're doing critical work, a lot of complex activity, whether you're talking about, cleaning, disinfecting, sterilizing, flexible endoscopes, or you're talking about, running, STERRAD loads, or, there's a lot of high risk activity. There's a lot of stuff that if you don't do it right, something is going to go wrong, because it's a process, right? Everything has to be in order. So, giving employees these competencies, whether it's annually or biannually, is a really good way of gauging their understanding of the tasks that they need to do correctly, and their understanding of some very important infection prevention principles. I think your competencies should be specific enough so that, if it's a task, step by step by step. If it's a general principle, then you have something where that person can maybe either verbally or take a test to demonstrate understanding. Yeah, but yeah, competencies are a critical tool, and we should all be using them for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we will take a little break, and then we'll get back and tell us a little bit about central sterilization solutions and what's your role there, and what do you guys provide for students, and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
So, but before we get welcome back. So before we get started, I have a question. So, what's the difference between an integrator and an indicator? You have any idea?
Hmm.
Hmm. What's the difference?
Between an
Integrator and an indicator.
Okay, I know the answer, but I know you don't want me to give it.
So, all right. So you give up, right?
I give it.
Okay. So the answer is one. All right. So if you don't
One.
get that, listen to the question. What is the difference between an integrator and an indicator? So an integrator has 10 letters, an indicator has 9. So you minus 9 from 10, you get 1. And
Right.
that is your answer. So anybody ask you that question in the future, just respond with 1. All right.
One.
So, all right, let's get this a little icebreaker, guys. So, let's get back. Can you tell us? I know you know Mr. Mullen Harry, and
Mhm.
he's a very influential guy. He's done a lot in the sterile processing arena, and he's a real cool guy. I got to know him last couple of weeks, and we discussed a couple of things. He introduced me to you, so that's excellent. And can you tell us a little bit about central sterilization solutions, what you guys provide, what your curriculum is like, and a little about your program?
Yeah. So yeah, Harry Mullen, a mutual friend of ours. Him and I go way back, Navy days. We met each other in the Navy. Um, Central Sterilization Solutions was started back by Harry in 2011. And the focus at that time was sterile processing education. So basically, the company would give classes based on the ISHM textbooks, and of course, our broad knowledge of the subject. Central Sterilization Solutions has grown over the years, and today I'm proud to say that I head up the consulting arm of the business. So not only are we involved in sterile processing education, we're also involved in the consulting arena when it comes to perioperative services and sterile processing. Our curriculum is basically, again, based on the ISHM textbook format. So we cover everything from instrumentation to microbiology, you name it. High-level disinfection, we cover it all. We also do interim management. So we have clients that have us come out to their facilities when their regular managers are either on vacation or on some kind of leave, or whether they're in transition to new management coming in. So that's kind of what CSS does: education, consulting, and we also do interim management in sterile processing.
Oh, great. I know there are a lot of sterile processing schools out there. In
Mhm.
terms of the quality of your education, your success results, and how you guys are perceived in your location, how do you feel about your overall program in general, the quality of education you guys provide, and the success rates of your students? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think Harry Mullen and his team from day one has done an outstanding job in putting together a curriculum that encompasses a real comprehensive view of the sterile processing world. The educators that conduct the classes have all been sterile processing technicians and have worked as managers and or supervisors. So not only are you getting a really solid, comprehensive sterile processing education from people with real experience, you're really getting all of our experience, all of our passion for this field. We've worked in it, we understand it, we've lived it. As far as success rates, we have one of the highest success rates in the Southern California area. When we talk about success rates, we talk about people who complete our program and then go on to get their ISHM certification. And our rates are upwards of 80% the last time I checked. So we're doing really well. We're really highly regarded. We have lots of hospital partners in the Southern California area.
That's very good. And in terms of getting in contact with you all, do you guys provide online education? And in terms of getting in contact with you all, how would one get in contact with you guys to start a course if someone took a course that wasn't if someone took a course that was not successful or did not give them the information that they needed to be successful in the certification exam, how would somebody be able to contact you guys to get that needed knowledge to succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. I would direct them to our website, which is centralsterilizationssolutions.com. There on our homepage, it will direct them whether they want to take a class or whether they're just looking for information. There will also be a number on the website that they can call. Again, that's centralsterilizationssolutions.com. Centralsterilizationssolutions.com.
All right, Central Sterilization Solutions. So guys, make sure you check out Central Sterilization Solutions. Is that correct on the screen?
Central Sterilization Solutions.com.
Yeah. Check them out. You could call, get some information on classes. If if the technicians in your department are not certified, and also what courses or what certifications do you guys provide?
So right now we're doing a basic sterile processing certification, which again is based on the ISHM textbooks. So that's basically preparing you to take and pass the ISHM certification. So we do that entry-level exam equivalent to the CRCST. We also do a scope processing course, and we do an instrument course as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Any you did not mention the CHL. You don't have a CHL, or did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, so we're currently developing and we're working on that, but right now we're not offering that just yet.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's good to know.
Hopefully sometime in the future.
That's good. So guys, please contact Central Sterilization Solutions for your sterile processing educational needs. And I sound like a commercial right now, right?
No, it's all good. The other part, you're good. The other part is our consulting side. So not only do we provide educational services and certification support, but we also do mock surveys. We have hospitals that have us come in on a regular basis to conduct mock surveys of their staff, of their departments, to make sure that they're ready, that they're staying ready for surveys. We also go into hospitals to conduct surveys to see if the departments are running as they should be running. We also I help out with competencies, policies and procedures,
Mhm.
etc. on our consulting side.
So, what is the most challenging part of coming into a new department and seeing what's the difficult? How would I put it? What's the most difficult change which you have faced? What's the most difficult aspect of a department to change if you're a consultant going in? And
Attitudes.
attitudes,
Yeah.
attitudes
Attitude.
of
Yeah.
leadership or attitudes of cell processing technicians.
Well, it depends. I mean, there's a variety of situations, but you know, sometimes that barrier is people's guards are up. Um, People are defensive um, at times, and so engaging with people and making sure they understand that, hey, we're on the team, we're here to help. You can talk to us, you need to talk to us. We need to work on getting things to a certain level. So I think once you cross that barrier, people start to trust, but it can take a little bit to penetrate people's attitudes and people's defensiveness, because here they are, and
Mhm.
they may not have passed JCO, and hear these people in their departments, and it can be a little bit tricky. So but it can be those initial attitudes that you run into when you first get into the department. But once we get past that and people realize that, we're here to help, it becomes a good thing.
And on that, staying on the same note, what's your biggest success? Like, what do you walk away from the most when you change and you get that thing changed and it's a success? What's your biggest success in terms of what do you equate as your biggest success when you leave a department and say, "Hey, we did X, Y, and Z, and this happened."
You know, Here's how I gauge success in that area. When I leave a facility, one of my goals is to ensure that the administrative folks, the physicians, the OR staff, and the center staff have a good understanding of what each other's role is. Not only an understanding, but a true appreciation for what people do. It's always good when teams that were having difficulty communicating about issues are now looking past the emotions and are working through a process to resolve and to come up with solutions. So communication for me, it may not be all 100% perfect when you leave a situation, but if you leave, that framework where people can appreciate, understand each other's work, and come away with tools that they can use to communicate more effectively with, I think is a win all the way around. And I would say that, that would be success to me, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, definitely. Communication is definitely important in any field, in any relationship. Any relationship, communication is the key. And I've heard it many times. I've seen it work. And there are different forms of communication and different approaches to communicate. Everybody's not receptive to everything. So you have
True.
to know how to communicate in order for it to be successful. And communication is the other person's perception of what you're saying. You could say you could
Yeah.
say I love you, but somebody takes it as, oh, this person is trying to use me. So you know,
Right. But
so
sometimes you have to agree on maybe terms or definitions
mhm,
before you can start communicating. I mean,
yes,
it depends on how bad the situation is. But literally, there are times when, okay, deep breaths. Okay, so here's what this means when I say it.
right,
It doesn't mean that I'm coming for your throat.
right,
So yes,
exactly,
definitely
exactly.
communication. It certainly depends on how severe the breakdown is. But
Hmm.
there are different starting points that where you may need to start from.
Right.
But that's a very solid point you just made. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely. So let me give an example. So the operating room could call down based on the relationship. Someone would call down and say, "Hey, we get this trade turned around as soon as possible?" And then you'd get the attitude like, "Why do you keep asking us to turn these trades around? They know they need another one. Why? You know?" So so it's not based on turning the tree around. It's based on how how it was said, or somebody says, well, one of my pet peeves is I don't like ASAP.
Mhm.
Give me a time, give me a case, give me a case number, procedure, give me something to work on. Don't tell me ASAP, because my ASAP today is not my ASAP yesterday.
Right.
It's
Right.
not my ASAP tomorrow. So
Yeah.
if yesterday I was fully staffed and I got that trip back in an hour and a half, 2 hours, then today, don't expect it back in an hour and a half, 2 hours. It might take 3 hours. It might take three and a half. Depends on the volume, my staff, and etc. So the ASAP thing is one of my,
Yeah.
like, I keep
Yeah.
saying,
Different things mean different things on different day.
right, right.
Yeah.
So, and I tried explaining that one time. I'm like, I came up like, can you guys not put ASAP? Can you give us some time or the case? So, at least if it's an add-on, give us some direction as to when you want the tree, so we know, what to do. Or we could respond and say, hey, this is not going to be ready in an hour. It has to get cleaned, etc., etc., etc. Oh no, you won't get it by 3. You get by. So we could come back and tell you, okay, this is possible, this is not possible. But if you say ASAP, we could be working as fast as we can, and it still won't be done in time. But your expectation is, you have a certain expectation in your mind, and that's why I keep trying to tell people. I keep trying to tell my operating room. I used to, but I think we're much better now. They had the perception that, why do you need to know all this? Um, I'm saying we need to know because we need to follow up with you if we can't make the deadline you're expecting us to make, so that patient won't be being wheeled into a room and you thinking the tray is cooling or the tray is already up here. So, if you have that expectation, you will move forward expecting that tray to be ready. And then when you're at a certain point and it's not ready, then frustration builds. Then the surgeon, you already assured the surgeon that yes, it'll be ready, because yesterday or last week we had the same issue. You had 4 cases, and the first case was turned around in time for your fourth one. But today we have different issues, and that
Right.
that 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 first case is not going to get turned around in time for the fourth one today, because of certain logistical issues we had. So I think, definitely the communication aspect is definitely one of
Yeah.
the
But
most important part.
that scenario that you just mentioned, and you mention it because it's a very real
Yeah.
scenario that
Hmm.
plays itself out in operating rooms and sterile processing departments every single day.
Yep.
And again, those are the kinds of things that on our consulting side, or me, the consultant, we go in and we take a deep dive into, the environment to kind of, help to stitch together what is going on.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, I mean, there's all kinds of different reasons for things. But a
Hmm.
lot of times what we find is that there, real, real recognized processes in place to work through certain things, right? So this is too critical of an area. I mean, we're doing surgery, we're putting people to sleep. Um, high risk activity is happening here, right?
Hmm.
We have to become better at anticipating, situations. And so a lot of times, we see that it's maybe the OR needs to buy 2 more trays or maybe 3 more trays, or they need to, both departments need to sit down and talk about what realistic expectations are and really understanding what's going on with the other party. A lot of times we're talking past each other and not trying to resolve things.
The
And
issues.
yeah, absolutely. And so that's what it's all about, is kind of diving in and working people to you know to put structures in place that you can use to communicate more effective with. Yeah.
Definitely. And any advice you might have for anybody coming in up in the field, or fellow fellow consultants, you know, fellow consultants or persons just having difficulty and need some direction or somebody to follow. Any advice for those folks in the field coming up and today?
I think anyone who has a passion for what we do, the field that we're involved in, they need to know that there are a variety of options, as far as career. A lot of people are at the tech level, at the entry level. They really get into sterile processing. They like working with their hands. They like the instruments, the dynamic nature. So they go on to put themselves in positions to become leads. And then, they educate themselves a little bit more and they start their way up. We've all seen people who started out as, regular technicians and are now supervisors and managers. I've taught people that are now managers and directors of departments. The field is wide open, and there is a really good and solid market for people with an expertise in sterile processing. Hospitals will pay for you to come in and help them resolve real critical issues. And so I would say to anyone who has a passion for reprocessing, sterile processing, is to, just keep educating yourself and keep, reaching out to people who are maybe doing something that you could see yourself doing. Keep educating yourself, keep networking. Yeah.
And networking is a huge part to being that cell processing is such a small network of people. This is definitely a niche profession. You don't go to school saying I want to be a sterile processing technician. Yeah. You find out about it when you're in a job or you're trying to figure out something to do. Like, hey, I need a career. I have a job. I need a career, and then you find out, oh, there's a sterile processing thing. Absolutely. You work in a hospital. You wear scrubs. I think I'm going to try and do that. It's steady work.
You work with very expensive instruments. It's pandemic proof. It's inflation. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's always there. And it certainly can be a stepping stone if you want something, a lot more.
Yeah.
As far as, working as a consultant, it certainly is very possible.
And it definitely gives you the tools you need. It may not give you everything, but it gives you those building blocks to step up into something else.
There's nothing like being on the ground and getting that knowledge, getting your hands dirty. I was there in the trenches, and you just have a very, comprehensive perspective. And I think a lot more sterile processing folks with experience should look into consulting and looking to joining,
Hmm.
firms that focus on sterile processing. Yeah, it's a
Yes,
good
yes.
career.
Because definitely there are some things, unfortunately, that are, how do I say, esoteric to working in a hospital. You won't get access to certain things if you're not in that setting. And being in sterile processing gives you access to the operating room, to cardiac, to labor and delivery. You get to see all those
All
different
of it.
services, professions at work. And then you could say, oh, you know what? I want to be a cardiologist. I want to
Absolutely.
be a operating room nurse. Oh, I want to be a labor and delivery nurse.
Hmm.
You know, so you have access to all these different professions getting into sterile processing and working with, and then you're working with them on a epidemiology aspect. So everybody's on the same level. They want clean instrumentation, so
Absolutely.
that you could connect to everyone in those professions on that one aspect, and then you being an expert, and they seeing your prowess or your drive to know more and teach them and communicate with them, that opens doors for you to move in different directions, you know.
Absolutely.
So I think
Absolutely.
that's a main, one of the main aspects. So anything else you wanna, oh, I just wanna say, guys, you could see this video on YouTube, sterile MD on youtube.com. All interviews will be on YouTube and on Facebook, so please check them out. My guest today, Pernell husband. And Pernell,
Yes.
I did not ask you, what are you doing in Mexico? What's going on with that?
Well, so I mean, I've lived all over Southern California. The Navy brought me out to Southern California in the late '80s, and that's where I've lived. Ever since then. I have some businesses that I'm working on down here, um, and we're trying to, get ourselves into the healthcare environment down here. So I've been down here for a few years, just poking around and trying to determine whether or not, there's a market for what we do um, in this area. We're making some progress. It's been slow, but that's one of the reasons I'm down here south of the border. Not full time, but a lot of the
Oh.
time.
Do you learn the language? Are you learning the language? Like what? I'm intrigued. Are you learning the language, eating the food, dressing like what's the deal with that? Or is it like,
Well, my
or do you,
sombrero. No,
how do
listen,
you?
I love the culture, um, and I love the food maybe even more. The people are just uh, hardworking, family oriented. They remind me of Caribbean folk. I guess, good people are just good people. I am learning the language,
Mhm.
getting better every day. And I'm even thinking about starting to vlog,
Mm,
kind of a daily thing, me
mm.
being down here. Yeah. So,
That's interesting. That's interesting. So Pernell, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna do rapid fire questions.
all right.
So I will give you some questions, and off the top of your head, could you give me some answers?
I will definitely try.
Yeah. What are you currently reading right now?
Currently, I am reading, I can show you. Winning
Mm.
My Race. I don't know. Does that come out backwards when you see it?
No, no, no. I see it just fine. Winning my race. And what's that
Yeah.
about?
Winning My Race. Discovering the energy, time, and discipline to fulfill your destiny. A few years ago, I I was in search of something that would help me to de-stress. There was a lot going on at the time, and that search led me to meditation, and it led me to mindfulness. which, we could do a whole nother show on just, those topics alone. But I really think that understanding the way that our minds work and the perspective that we have of the world and of things going on around us is really the key to us being better and becoming more successful. Because once we understand how our mind works, once we understand that we have a say-so in what we think and in how we think, once you gain that understanding, as far as I'm concerned, it's very, very powerful. So for me, it's all about the mind. It's all about good energy. And this book speaks to a lot of that and a lot of the priorities in our lives. Again, winning my race, discovering the energy, time, and discipline to fulfill your destiny. There's another one, since you asked me about, where is it? This is an older book, but it's a good one that I've just jumped back into. Can you see that?
Yes, that is something tall
Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart, A New Earth, Awakening of the Life of Your Life Purpose.
Awakening to Your Life's Purpose.
To Your Life's Purpose, sorry.
Yeah, that's another one. So that's kind of what I'm reading right now.
So what's your favorite book now?
My all-time favorite book, I would have to say, maybe Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, maybe I think I love the premise of that book. I love the idea of, someone really breaking down the financial world and how it really works and what we're taught in school about finances and what we're not. I think that was, for me, a real good introduction into, the psychology of wealth and how people think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that book. It tells a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's some things you may know, but to actually read it, then you realize, oh, that's why I make those decisions. That's why I think that way. So it definitely reinforces. It reinforces your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your favorite? What's your first job? What's your first job?
First ever job?
Yeah,
working construction with my uncle, who had a construction business in Houston, Texas. And being out there in the summertime where it's 105 degrees, working outside, framing apartment buildings, putting up sheetrock. That's what we did, sheetrock and the framing. That was my first job, first ever job.
Good skills. And your last question, what's your favorite word?
My favorite word. I don't know that I have a favorite word, D. I don't think I have a favorite word. I've never thought about that. Now, let me think. I mean, my favorite word. I want to say food, then food, maybe.
That's a good favorite word.
I guess, I don't know.
In life in general, what's your go-to word? What sums you up? What perspective on that?
You know what it is for me? So, I'm one who really believes that I've learned to understand and to believe that life happens in the present moment, right? And if we give any attention or energy to things in the past, or if we're preoccupied with the future, an undetermined future, we don't know. Anything that we think about the future is a projection, and it never happens the way you think it's going to turn out. At least it never happens for me. So I think living presently, which means focusing on what you're doing, all of your attention, all of your focus to whatever you're involved in the present moment, really gives you, I think, more control over what's happening because you're focused, you're truly focused. You're not in the past, you're not in the future. So oftentimes when I find myself either going into the future or going into the past, there's something I say to myself to kind of recenter.
I'm getting a call from a friend.
Oh, our friend who's watching.
Hey, who's this?
This is Harry.
Harry who?
Harry Mullen.
Oh, Harry. I'm just kidding. How you doing? Are you back yet?
I'm sitting in Portland right now.
Oh man.
What's
How you
going on,
been?
Pretty good. So is your show over or still on? Or
We're still on. We're still going. We're wrapping up. But thank you for calling. I'm calling in. You have any questions for our guest? You may know him. He's a Pernell husband. Yeah.
Yes, I do know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can come up with a question or two.
Yeah. So ask your question and then hang up so that you could listen on the other side unless you're listening. I'm on a computer.
No trick questions. No trick questions.
No trick questions, he says.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're ready for you.
Yep.
What's your question?
Oh, okay. So Pernell, this is Mr. Mullen in California. I know we've met each other a time or two. So, what is your, best approach in dealing with difficult upper management? I'm changing it to, I know it came in late on the conversation. So my question is, how do you deal with upper management?
Did you hear that? Thanks, Harry. And listen on the other side. He'll answer your question. Thank you so much for calling in.
Right.
Appreciate it. All right.
What's my approach to dealing
with upper management?
Okay. And I'm assuming Harry's talking about people who are managers or supervisors, I believe, maybe dealing with their bosses. I think I should have asked a clarifying question.
And he probably just had an issue with that recently.
Could be. So I may be wrong, but I'll take it from that particular approach. I'm sure Harry will let me know.
Yeah. In the comments, let me see. We have a comment here. He's in the comments. Oh yeah, he says yes. That's the perspective he is looking looking for.
Yeah. So for me, whenever I've had to deal with, and in my case, whether it's directors of surgery, chief operating officers, CEOs, vice president of this or that, like Harry's mentioning, upper management. I would say the first thing for me is whenever you're going to deal with upper management, you always have to understand as a manager that you need to be aware of their time. These are people who are very busy, in and out of meetings, probably twice the amount of meetings that managers may have. These are very busy people. So I'm always aware of their time. So I want to be prepared. I want to make sure that if I'm going in there to ask for something, that I am as prepared as I can be with all of the information that I need. Okay, if I'm going to have an audience with upper management, I need to be as prepared as I can be. So that's number one. Any meeting that I've gone into with the C-suite or vice presidents, what have you, above me, I've always tried to make sure that I was prepared for that meeting. That's number one. Number two, if you need something, ask for it. Don't be afraid to ask for it, because there's not going to be anybody else advocating for your department. Everybody else is too busy taking care of themselves, putting out whatever fires they're having to put out, dealing with whatever staff issues they're dealing with. So I would definitely be prepared. Advocate for yourself and for your department. Ask for it. Let them turn you down. I would ask for it. And I always follow up with an email thanking them for giving me an audience with them, and just kind of summarizing what I got out of the meeting. And so that's usually kind of my basic approach towards dealing with upper management from a manager's perspective. I hope
that was some good points. Definitely the summary. I've heard many speakers speak on that point before. No, not many, a few. The summarization at the end of the meeting to let the speakers know what you got out of the meeting, in terms of having the assumption that you guys are on the same page. Yeah, I got you. And then everybody's walking out with different opinions or different reasoning. So
absolutely. It shows them that you're thoroughly prepared, and it also, does something else, D. It also protects you, and it puts on the record. If you've been asking for 2 additional staff for the past year, and all you've been hearing is no, then you may want to have that acknowledged in an email. So that when it hits the fan, and it possibly will, you can say, listen, I met with you on February 4th. We talked about boom, 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 boom. Here were my reasonings that I gave you. And then I sent you a summary email, and here was your response. So again, yes, you have a nice snapshot of the meeting, of a summary, and you're covering yourself.
Definitely like it. And I'm gonna put that into practice too. Off instinct, I do something like that just to protect myself, but I will be in more depth, take a little more time with it, and be more in depth with my analysis after every meeting, just to get that clarification.
Sometimes, yeah, it's a good habit to have, and have a journal. When you're in a meeting with folks, write in your journal. Absolutely. I don't know what different places may have different policies when it comes to recording or what have you, but there's no laws against taking notes.
Yeah, definitely. And our Facebook user asked, what if your boss is being disrespectful?
Yeah. Well, that happens. I mean, there's a lot of disrespectful people out there, some bosses included. I think, everyone who works for a hospital gets a handbook when they're going through orientation. And I guarantee you that your handbook discusses workplace behavior. I'm pretty sure that handbook would discuss workplace norms. And if you believe that you're experiencing any kind of disrespectful or harassing behavior, then again, I would take notes. If someone approaches you in a way that you think is unprofessional or disrespectful, my personal advice would be to go to that person and to let them know that you felt like they were speaking to you inappropriately. You approach them in a professional, calm way, but you let them know. You let them know. You give them an opportunity to correct their behavior. Now, again, if the behavior was really egregious, they're calling you out of your name, they're cursing at you, that's a whole different story. That could be one of those straight to HR type situations. But I always, when you think people are coming at you inappropriately, you have to check them.
And then I believe, thank you for that. Definitely, I believe HR is definitely the way to go, or documentation, definitely. But again, that brings me to the communication piece, where communication is the other person's perception of what you're saying. So disrespect is your understanding, your perception of what somebody's telling you. So the conversation could be like, you could be new in the group, so to speak, and then there's a group norm when keywords. If you work anywhere along a long period of time, you develop a language in each department where you guys say something and it means something totally different. So I think everybody could relate to that. I worked at a factory once where we had silly names for basic things. We just, because something fell on the floor, we call it, the floor thing, and so nobody walking in would know that. So then if somebody comes in, they're like, oh, pick that off the floor. Then they'll be like, why are you telling me that? That's, I'm not here for that. So, certain things in certain cultures, basically, if someone's coming in fresh, it may seem disrespectful to them, but then you have to understand the dynamics of that culture too. So I believe that communication is the perception of the person receiving the message. So the person might not mean it disrespectfully, but if you're perceiving it based on previous experience, this was told to me before and it meant this, but then somebody else is telling you it now, it may not mean the same thing. It may mean that they're just not familiar with your how you receive certain communication, certain certain codes or certain messages.
Yeah,
So.
I think you certainly have to be aware of the environment that you're in. But again, if you feel like someone is being disrespectful, and we all kind of know what that feels like, then it's your obligation to make sure that you, again, and like you said about perception, this person may not feel like they're being inappropriate. Maybe that's just the way they talk. But again, since it's my perception that you're disrespecting me, I have to make sure that I give you an opportunity to, set me straight.
I'll correct it.
Hey, I feel like you're talking down to me.
Right.
That's my perception.
Because some people talk at you instead of speaking to you. They someone come into the room like, I need someone to do this.
Right.
And or they don't say, can you do this for me, please?
Moment,
right. Or some people just have that. I knew some managers before, not necessarily so person, but they would speak at you to say, get this done for me. It won't be a question, it will be a demand.
Sure.
You understand? So then you're like, okay, I'm a human being. Why are you? Maybe I can't do it. If you ask me, then I could respond, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And there's a lot of breakdown like that sometimes. Like, okay, let's say somebody's sterilizing, or they're washing instruments or something, or they assembling a tree, and that tree is a priority. And someone comes in there with a demanding attitude and say, hey, I need you to take this cart upstairs now. So that doesn't give that person a opportunity to respond. If you said, can you take this tray? Are you able to take this tray up for me, or take this cart up? Then you could respond saying, I'm working on a priority tray right now. I could do it after I finish the tray. But then if you leave that tray behind, it's another 15 minutes. They need that tray upstairs. It's not assembled, then more issues. So it's all about the way you communicate and the times too, I believe.
And remember, the earlier part of our conversation, one of the early parts of our conversations, we talked about, communication. Maybe it was the other show where we talked about expectations. Right?
Yes.
It's I think I just lost my train of thought. I really did. Um, yeah, we can move on. I think I just lost my train of thought on that one. I was going to say something about communication, but I forgot where I was going with it.
Yeah, so I think you're saying the last show we spoke on communication
Yeah.
and communication skills. I think we spoke about a bit.
Yeah,
Communication. We spoke about management communication a little bit. We touched on
well,
that.
I think where I was going is that look, in a department, there are going to be all kinds of communicators, right? Not everybody communicates the same. Some people have this personality, that personality.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has to set the tone or to make it clear, okay, here's how we communicate in this department about these kinds of issues. And again, being proactive and just knowing and understanding that things are going to happen, things are going to come up. So when they do, here's how we deal with them, right? So that tone needs to be set by the leader.
Mm-hmm.
Communication needs to be established clearly. Here's how we communicate with each other when there's a problem. So it takes all of the personalities out. Go read your handbook that you got from orientation, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you communicate with me, it needs to be in a courteous and a professional way, right? Regardless of the circumstances. So I think that might have been where I was going.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I think that's the end of the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please check out Central Sterilization Solutions. They're definitely a great education source, and they're located in California. Where in California exactly?
We're in Southern California, based in Riverside, California.
All right. So definitely check them out. And check out Sterile MD on YouTube. You will see this show on there also. And guys, we are out. Thank you.